Hi, thanks for having a look at this. It's pretty basic, but I think it makes a point of the kind of interactions we're experimenting with for the book. So here's the book in quite normal. It's a two-page layout. You can read it, of course, one page if you want to, but the idea is like a book, you open a two-page spread and you go through, you do the arrow key to go next. And some of these articles are quite long, which is something we're very grateful for, but especially for the monthly presentations, there's quite a lot of Q&A. And unless you're interested in that subject right now, it can actually be boring, and that is okay too. So how do we deal with that? Like here's Barbara's. Barbara's is not done yet, she's working on it. I just did the basics for her and she's going through, because we're going from a spoken artifact to a written artifact, which of course is a very different thing. So I've done my pass, she's going to do hers. But either way, it's very long and there's a lot of images. So when you're reading it, that is of course fantastic. But let's say, you see we're still in Barbara's piece now, and here we're more into the dialogue. Let's say that you have read it, or for some reason you're not interested in Barbara's work, which I can't really imagine because it's phenomenal. But let's go back to this page, the first page. So let's say you've landed on this page, you've been going through, and it's just, yeah, okay, I have a look here, I have an idea what it is because I have this two-page spread, it gives me good indication. Better than the name, unless you know her, and the title. So instead of doing all of this, which has a high cognitive load of where does it end, I have to concentrate, oops, I have to go back. What we are doing in Reader is just this. If you hit the down arrow to go through pages, not the right arrow, which is pages, but you go down, it goes to the next heading. So initially, it's exactly the same because that was one section per two-page spread. But let's say we get to Andreas. We don't want to read this. Down arrow. Boom, we'll get to the Q&A because it is a heading. The down arrow goes to the next page that has a heading. That's the key. And then we jump to Andy Campbell. And then we get to Annie, Apurva, and here's Barbara again. So in this case, as we said before, we decided not to read it. I hit the down arrow. I'm at her Q&A, and then I'm on Bob's page. So there is a difference between having only a table of content, which I don't think gives much information, and we've looked into doing tags and all kinds of things to help people decide what they're going to read. So we've gone from that to this. It's a quick way to see what the article is. Some of the articles are really short, so you don't actually need more. Some aren't here, of course, yet, and that's fine. But here, Eduardo, really great piece, but again, it's quite long. I'm not reading that now. Down arrow, boom, Fabian. Now I don't want to read this Fabian either, or that Fabian. I've read all of his work. And then you get to something I've written, Jack, etc. So you can see, all I'm trying to say here is, even though we're looking at VR, a lot of the reading will be what I call human scale. It will be roughly the size of a large book. We're looking into different VR solutions as tests for what the book can be, but the actual reading part should be like this. We are imagining in VR, you have this book floating in space somehow, very comfortable to move it, size it, resolution, all that's fine. But you could do an interaction so that, for instance, let me go to the end here. See, this indicates the scrolling. So the timeline, you should be able to view the timeline in a much more interesting way because it's organized here, so that can be done. And check this out. At the very end of the book, I put in a few pictures, not a lot, but a few pictures from the physical symposium day. What we would like to have is some sort of interaction, we don't know what yet, where you can gesture these and they go floating in the room in a nice way. Maybe a carousel, maybe on the wall. These are the kinds of experiments we want to do. But the key thing is, someone is new to the book, how can they get an overview? And someone is reading the book and they want to skip around, how can we help them? That's what we're looking at. Thanks for your time. This was a long video, 5.5 minutes. I very much appreciate your involvement.